This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in to the Monday Mashup. I'm your host, as always, Shea Norling. This show brought to you by Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Joining me, Kevin McCann.
Howdy.
What's up? Big week. No more NBA after today.
Yeah, for what, till Thursday?
Yeah. It's rough. It's rough for us. If you listen to the podcast, you know how difficult this is going to be.
I mean, the last games we had on the other Thursday night were awful, too. It was like Atlanta and New York, so we haven't had a good one since like Wednesday.
At least we got to watch Oklahoma City.
Yeah, which was nice.
Okay, so where I want to start the show is with football in the NFL, because Antonio Brown did a thing that was just incredible, just an all-time flex.
A flex would be a good way to, like, weird flex, but okay.
Pretty much. He made his own farewell video. Yeah, usually the teams do this, but Antonio Brown was like, no. I'm going to go on Twitter. I'm going to make my own farewell video.
In general is like the first thing that he said when he was like, all right, it's been fun, Pittsburgh. Thanks for the memories. Time for a new chapter. And it's like, you can look up your contract. You have like 3 years left, man.
I need to look up his contract right now because, like, we need the info on it. How can you give yourself your own farewell? Yeah, it's time to move on. Like, he's free. Dude, you're not a free agent until 2022.
No, they owe him 12.6 this coming year, 11.3 the year after, and 12.5 the year after that.
Spot Rack doesn't even have a potential out for him until 2021.
No.
So you're not getting out of the contract. So now he's just like, he needs to be traded or he's going to go the Le'Veon Bell route.
What's going on with Le'Veon Bell? I don't know what's happening with Le'Veon Bell.
Nobody's heard anything about that either.
I wouldn't trade either of them. Like, I'd still consistently be like, you're both, like, we could technically have you both in camp if we wanted to, and if you don't, then you can't play.
And I don't know, like, what's going on with Le'Veon's contract, and if, like, I know they're trying to transition tag him, but, like, I don't know how all of this works, and I don't know if even the NFL knows how this works.
Well, it's got to be different with AB.
Money back and forfeit all of this stuff, and, like, they've never experienced this before.
But with AB, because with Le'Veon, it's the franchise tag, and he just didn't sign it. So if he didn't sign it, like, he's not in breach of contract. AB's under contract. Like, if he doesn't show up, they can sue him. Like, they can take money from him. They can do a lot of, so, like, they can hold him hostage, essentially. Like, this is the NFL. There are no guarantee. You can easily be held hostage.
Yeah, somebody should have reminded Antonio Brown before he sent this tweet out.
This
is not the NBA. This is not a league where players have power.
Like, you see it happen in the NBA, and they probably think, like, I want to be able to do this. Like, no, you don't get to do this. It didn't work out for Anthony Davis.
Yeah, Anthony Davis demanded a trade. Yeah. Showed the players have the power. Then it completely backfired on him. Yeah. And now he's even turned his back on his agent. And AB was like, you know what? If I just make my own farewell video, I'm out. I'm gone.
If I just say I'm gone, that means I'm gone, right? All right, cool. I'm gone.
All right. Do you think that if the opportunity arises, should the Lions go for AB?
Yeah, hell yeah. Sure. Why not?
I feel like
my answer to if there is ever a good player out there, baggage, whatever it is, don't care. If the Lions can get them, bring them here. It can't get worse.
That's
true.
The thing. That is true.
So always bring everybody here. Bring Le'Veon. Bring AB. I'll take all of them.
I just feel like if he's not happy in Pittsburgh with an elite quarterback, like an all-time great quarterback, who's not as great anymore, but still is pretty good, and the best owners in football, he's not going to be much happier in Detroit with Matt Stafford.
Only one way to find out.
Heavy offense. Go get him.
Come on in.
Okay, how about this? Would you rather that they use the first-round pick on Kyler Murray or trade it for Antonio Brown?
If all it takes is the ninth pick? Eighth pick? If all it takes is the 8th pick straight up for AB?
I think it would take more than that.
What if it was the 8th pick straight up for AB and Le'Veon?
I think it would. Oh, Jesus.
I'm in.
What are we playing, Madden?
Right now.
We turn trade override off?
All right, Kerryon Johnson in the 8th pick for AB and Le'Veon. I'll do it. Why not?
I don't know, man. See, I love Kerryon.
I do too, but I like Le'Veon better.
That's true. What if it's like, see, I haven't even gone through like the possible trades, so it would have to be multiple picks and players, you would think.
I've been hearing like it's like a low to mid-round pick or whatever for AB. That's all that's out there on the market. That's all that anybody will offer.
Which
like
says a lot about AB
or something. Well, I mean, isn't that like how it always just like randomly didn't everybody just randomly draws like a second-round pick? It's like, that guy's amazing. Okay, second-round pick.
And then I guess it makes sense because there is Brandon Cooks too, who has never had a less than 1,000-yard receiving season and went for 1 first-round pick
Right,
last season.
like, the wide receiver. If you're not a quarterback, you're not going to draw a huge return for anything.
I guess it's
or
true.
Or a pass rusher.
First-round picks have a ton of value in the NFL.
Yeah,
which is like more so than they do in the NBA, maybe because you have to like stockpile picks in the NBA. But like it feels like in the NFL, one first-round pick will get you a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much turnover in the NFL that when you get a chance to get a really young, good player, yeah, that's going to be the most value.
But then there's also like if you're Oakland and you trade Amari Cooper for a first-round pick, or if you're the Cowboys rather, and you get Amari Cooper for a first-round pick, people are like, "You're fucking stupid."
We'll see how stupid they are. Yeah, that's one that's like, it's always when you trade for a first-round pick, you can't judge it right away because you have to see what becomes of that first-round pick.
And my feeling is if you're going to trade a first-round pick, trade it for the position you would have drafted anyway and get a known quantity.
Do you think the Lions are going to draft a quarterback at 8?
Think and hope are different things. I don't think they will because I don't think they have the balls, but I kind of hope they would.
I don't think they do.
Because I remember seeing there was like a blog post, and it might have been from 97.1, that outside of the first 2 rounds, if you're drafting a quarterback, you might as well wait till like the 7th. Because the success rate just drops so much.
I don't.
So it's like, I have a feeling they're going to take a quarterback this year. And if they're going to take a quarterback at some point in the draft, if they're going to take a quarterback this year, I'd rather them do it at 8 than do it in like the 5th round where they could have gotten who knows
Brad
what.
Kaya.
Yeah, exactly. Or Kellen Moore. Like that's
offensive coordinator.
You get the 4th or 5th round pick that you blow on a quarterback that never pans out, never sees the field, or like a Jake Rudock, who what was that 3rd or 4th round?
I have no idea.
And it's like, dude, if you're going to take a quarterback, just go all in and take one at the start because you're not pushing Matthew Stafford with a guy that you draft in the 5th round.
But are we trying to push Matthew Stafford? That's what's happening now. I haven't
kept
up on my Lions talk.
If that's the goal, my deal is you went and hired a guy who is one of the most run-heavy coordinators in football, but you're paying your quarterback $35 million. Yeah,
but if you trade him, you got to give him like a
doesn't
bunch
make sense.
of money.
Well, I know, and that's why
check.
You don't have to trade him, but you know you're probably going to be bad next year anyways. You know it's not a system Stafford wants to play in. And plus, if you trade Stafford after next year, it's a lot cheaper.
But imagine that realization of like, oh, we know we're going to be bad next year when you have that much money invested in a quarterback and an offensive line.
But that's part of the problem, too, because I remember also seeing the thing that, like, since 1999 or something, no team has won the Super Bowl while paying their quarterback more than 12.4% of the cap or whatever it is.
Yeah, but that's just because Brady keeps taking less and less money.
Well, and Peyton was the highest, and that was in 2015 when he was making like 12.4, 12.7.
You still need the really good, expensive quarterbacks, but if you get the best one who decides, I'll play for this much, then yeah, nobody's going to beat them.
But then there's this year where like 1 through 5, it was Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, and Matthew Stafford, and none of them made the playoffs.
That's a tough list right there.
Exactly. Like, none of them made the playoffs. Those are the 5 highest paid quarterbacks.
Aaron Rodgers got hurt on opening night, and he wasn't the same all year. But, like, aside from that, all those other guys.
Like, Joe Flacco won that Super Bowl on the miracle where he hit Jacoby Jones on the fly route in Denver.
Yeah.
And then after that, became the highest paid quarterback in football and never saw the light of day again.
Talk about betting on yourself.
Like that's to me.
He
it's
turned
like
down that extension right before it, and then played that year on a 1-year deal, and then got a huge extension because he won a Super Bowl. Like, bet on yourself, and it pays off.
It's true. History to me at this point in the NFL errs on the side of like, don't pay your quarterback. Like,
don't pay
get
your
a good quarterback,
ghastly amounts of money,
but don't make him the highest paid player in NFL history.
But give him like a mid-level deal.
Yeah, like give him the Brady deal. Which is probably tough to convince quarterbacks to do that, especially a guy like Aaron Rodgers who thinks he's head coach, owner, offensive coordinator, all in one, which he kind of is the owner if he lives in Green Bay.
I don't even know who the coach in Green Bay is. They hired some random guy I never heard of, right?
Yeah, it's a guy who's never coached before in his life, but Aaron Rodgers likes him.
Sounds good.
So that's what they're going for.
I hope they suck. I hate the Packers, so, like, yeah, good.
So, yeah, well.
He broke Olivia Munn's heart. That's like taking a piece away from me.
Who doesn't hate the Packers?
Rodgers and the Packers, both of them. I hate them both.
I do hate Aaron Rodgers. I respect Aaron Rodgers. He's in my top 5 all-time quarterbacks,
as a football
but
player,
I hate Aaron Rodgers.
Screw that guy.
He's one of the most annoying guys to watch. Speaking of quarterbacks, the NFL had to pay a quarterback.
You could call him the highest paid quarterback in the history of the NFL if you wanted to.
One paycheck. He got in one paycheck what Kirk Cousins is getting over 3 years, reportedly.
Must be nice. Well,
we're talking, of course, about Colin Kaepernick, who, by the way, says he wants to play football, accepted a settlement from the NFL between $60 and $80 million, which to me just says, like, the NFL.
I'm going to guess 80.
Yeah, probably closer to 80. to me, like, the NFL is a league where they went to court for, 2 years to get Brady for what amounted to be a witch hunt that was nothing. But they poured money into going to court, and they spent, like, 12 months in and out of appeals with Zeke Elliott. And
the difference in those situations is none of the owners had to be deposed in those cases.
Yeah. And
maybe Robert Kraft did. I don't know. But
that's I think he did, but that's beside.
He wasn't asked the questions they were being asked in this case.
Right. And that's so the funny thing about it is the NFL never has a problem going to court.
No.
Now they're willing to pay $80 million to avoid getting subpoenaed and avoid
Well,
having their owners
subpoenaed. They got deposed.
giving depositions but like avoiding it going public in a trial. The NFL was going to get taken to the woodshed.
I mean, it wasn't.
Cap
they knew
had
they
him
were
by
going
the
to
balls.
lose. Like they knew they were going to lose either way. Like everything that was coming out, they were definitely going to lose. But it became like, how much do we have to pay to make sure that nobody knows this is what all of our owners think and this is what happened and everybody's in cahoots. Like they were going to prove collusion, and I think not only were they going to prove collusion on the Colin Kaepernick aspect, but on like a much grander scale that this happens for a bunch of different ways too.
Oh yeah,
not
like,
just Kaepernick.
You don't. If you go through our cell phone records and make it public and make us speak about this stuff, you're going to find out a lot of
collusion that
things.
Nathan Peterman has to have a job. Like we talk about that openly.
Joe Webb and Nathan Peterman, they both are lacking significant amounts of melanin.
So
give them a
Someone
contract.
has to have a McCown under contract every year. It's a law.
It is funny, though, and it's also disappointing because then I went on Twitter, which, of course, is the worst place in the world to go if you want to see what your fellow man is thinking.
No, that's not my fellow man.
It's a dreadful
if
place.
Twitter's my fellow man.
Today was a day where multiple times I had to like explain to myself that I share a planet with this person.
These are just people you never hope you meet.
And I just want to make a clarification in case anybody who listens to this thinks along these lines, because somebody said to me that Colin Kaepernick clearly doesn't care about kneeling or Black Lives Matter or any of that stuff. He doesn't care at all. He was only ever interested in money.
That's like patently ridiculous.
And I want to make it like very, very clear that the movement and this payout,
like initially,
this payout and the movement have nothing to do with each other.
No.
This payout was about collusion, disallowing him to play in the NFL, not about him kneeling.
The money he is getting here is for like lost wages that he could have possibly made in the future playing football.
It's like, literally just damages because they colluded him.
Of making money playing football. So he's getting that money now. And I get like the Nike thing, like, yes, like there's marketability to all of this. So sure, why not? Why not sign a deal with Nike?
You're all just salty that Nike doesn't want to give you a contract.
Yeah, like I'm not mad at it. I didn't buy any of the Kaepernick stuff because it's ridiculously expensive. But like, you know,
it is really expensive.
Like, I don't have $500 for a jersey.
But hey, LeBron's wearing it, and it doesn't get much better than that for press.
People on Instagram will buy it.
So then the other thing I said is, because now apparently the Patriots might have some interest, or Kaepernick has some interest, and also the Panthers, I think, are the other team that may have interest in signing Colin Kaepernick.
Jerry Richardson's going to roll over in his grave. Is he dead? He's not dead. Never mind.
that little letter that he had to pen.
That's gonna be great.
Good Lord. He's getting, dude, he will never have been more upset to have relinquished ownership than in that moment.
I mean, you can tell just from the clause in the contract that the statue has to stay up. He has two panthers on a leash. That's the statue, is him with like two panthers at his feet.
It is incredible. Like we're talking about a league where the owners are like, what was the quote the late Texans owner made?
Inmates running the asylum.
Yeah,
Bob McNair.
Can you imagine? Yeah, Jesus Christ, Bob McNair. So you have like Robert Kraft, who supposedly is like the least progressive mind in the world, even though he brought the Patriots to greatness.
Dances on stage with Cardi B. He's got
that is true, and he was for prison reform, but he also gave Donald Trump $1 million and said that he loves what he's doing. So,
well,
I mean, it goes
got a nice tax break.
It goes to both ways. But will Kaepernick ever play in the NFL again?
I mean, from a theoretical standpoint, you should be able to say yes. Like, he's probably good enough. He should get another chance if all these other guys who are bums are under contract. Like
Nathan Peterman,
I don't know if
and
anybody
Joe
will,
Webb,
like,
and
I don't think at this point somebody's going to go out and say, yeah, let's sign him and he'll be our starter. Like, but bring him in, see what he's got. Like, he hasn't had a tryout that we know of. Like he should at least have gotten a look.
Look at Jacksonville, what they had to deal with
2 years
like,
ago. If they'd brought him in, who knows?
Even this year, where they were like, 2 years ago they started the quarterback battle and they had Blake Bortles and Chad Henne. And like, yeah, maybe if you bring Colin Kaepernick in, you end up in the Super Bowl instead of getting wasted in New England against a 40-year-old with stitches in his hand.
Only in the second half, too. Like, they were ready. They had it.
Like, that's part of the problem. You got Cody Kessler's in the league, Josh Johnson, Colt McCoy, Nathan Peterman, Derek Anderson, Mark Sanchez, plenty of dumpster guys. I don't see an issue with like a team going, yeah, I think Colin Kaepernick's good enough to be a backup and potentially play should our starter get hurt.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, it's a PR nightmare. It's this, it's that. Your fan base will hate you. Like, yeah, well, they'll hate him until he wins a damn game.
Yeah,
like,
winning cures all.
They
guys.
won't care if he comes into a game when your quarterback gets hurt and he wins. They'll be like, I love that guy.
Yep. Oh, I'm getting me one of them
let me get a
Kaepernick jerseys.
jersey.
I also promise if they sign, this is the thing that makes me super confident that he's going to go into the NFL. If he gets an NFL job, even as a backup quarterback, he's immediately in the top 5 best-selling jerseys.
Probably.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Because NFL jerseys aren't expensive.
Aren't they? I haven't bought an NFL jersey, I think, my whole entire life.
I think they're the only ones that are like under $100.
I still have a Joey Harrington
basketball
jersey.
jerseys might be under that, too. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Still
might want to get rid of
somewhere.
that one.
I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere.
Might want to get rid
That
of that
old
one.
Honolulu blue and like the actual one without the black piping, the old like blue and silver one with the white pipe. It's a good one.
Maybe if the Lions aren't going to draft a quarterback, they should take a flyer on Cap.
Yeah, they won't. But like, sure, it's fun to see. Like I said, if there's anybody out there that wants to come and thinks they can help the Lions, come on down.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not gonna happen.
They won't. There's not a chance.
No.
So basketball.
Yay.
Because we love basketball. So the Rising Stars played a game, the Rising Stars Challenge. And it's always a fun game because you get to see all the young guys out there competing, playing with each other. Guys like John Collins, who I love, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And
Rough night last night for John Collins.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Rough night for a couple guys, too.
Tough look for John Collins, though.
Dennis
brought out like a whole production, and it just did not go well.
Yeah, that was bad. Dennis Smith Jr. had a rough go of it there for a minute, too, where he attempted the same dunk like 8 times.
Yeah. I think he got like a 48 on it or something when he finally got it down, though. They gave him an unreal score.
Which is absurd. And then he had the 50 that was not a 50 because he jumped
No.
over Dwayne Wade. Like, dude, I just watched Diallo
J. Cole
jump
dunk
over
was
Shaq.
crazy, though. Like, he was
J. Cole was
soaring
cool.
over J. Cole.
That was
Quavo
cool.
dunk for Diallo, I mean, immediately thought to myself, he's going to put this ball in Quavo's hands and have him hold it over his head. Do you see Quavo's hands right now? There's about 1 million on those hands. Like, I would not just be having somebody come over top of me and snatching the ball with all these rings on my hands. Like,
He was iced out.
Yeah.
So also in the... Now I'm just thinking of Diallo jumping over Shaq and doing the Vince Carter, and I was immediately like, he won.
Jumping over Shaq was going to be enough for me, but when he did the honey dip, like, oh my God.
Who was the one a few years ago that put Shaq in the throne and then jumped over?
I don't recall that. Probably Aaron Gordon.
It might have been Aaron Gordon. It might have been Zach LaVine too, but Zach LaVine was a showstopper.
Aaron Gordon's was cool as hell too. He did the mascot on the hoverboard spinning around.
Andy didn't even win.
No, he did not.
But again, All-Star Weekend, it's the best time for Rising Stars. Guys like Rising Star, noted third-year rookie Ben Simmons.
I love that. Third-year rookie. Not third-year sophomore at this point. He's still a rookie in his third year.
Third-year rookie. Ben, like, this was the one I was going through the Rising Stars roster, and I get to the world team, which I always forget Ben Simmons is Australian, technically. Yeah. But I go to the world team, and I scroll to the bottom, and I see Ben Simmons, and I'm like, nah, he's too old to be in this game. There's no way.
Wasn't he on a high school team with D'Angelo Russell? Isn't D'Angelo Russell like 24?
Like it's just Ben Simmons. How long was he at LSU for? 1 year.
1 year.
He was, and then he came out and he's like, I only did 1 semester, really. But yeah,
I don't even think he did 1 semester.
He's 22 years old.
State.
I'm like, the guy across from you is Jason Tatum, who I also don't think should be in this game, but at least he's only 20. Like, Ben Simmons is 22. If you can legally drink, maybe you shouldn't be on the Rising Stars team.
Bogdanovich won MVP of it last year, and he was like 25.
And then he was on it again.
Yeah, he was like 26.
Maybe Bogdanovich is just going to be the perennial Rising Star.
Possibly.
He'll be 34, and he'll be on the Rising Stars
in like
team.
2014, and he's on the Rising Stars game.
The Rising Stars game is so weird, too, because like OG Anunoby, I'm like, why is he in this game?
Rising Star. I forgot about
that.
Like,
maybe put Siakam in there instead of OG Anunoby. Like, I forgot that. Like, Anunoby's a guy that we forgot was on the Raptors this year. Like, that's pretty much just a trade piece at this point.
Yeah,
and it's not even like that good of a trade piece.
You got to fill. Well, he's played pretty good. I think he still has value if they were to try to trade him. But I think you know when you have the world
not
roster,
as much. See,
trying to find
playoffs
first and second year guys to fill out the world roster.
It's true. Yeah, and like Rodions Caruso, who I love, was on the world roster, but again, like the USA roster was way obviously better. It almost always is. I think talent-wise, maybe World had it, but like when you have C.D. Osman at the end of your roster,
Jetty, the Jedi master.
is he
himself.
really? Are we really calling him a rising star?
Sure. Got a big profile in
just
Croatia.
because we have to fill this out.
He's Turkish, not Croatian. My bad.
Like, imagine he's averaging 12.6 points per game, but imagine if he were playing.
But he plays for Cleveland.
Yeah, imagine if you were on a good team. That number would drop to like 4.8.
How many minutes?
Oh, probably way too many.
Yeah,
just way too many. So here's the other thing: who is our favorite young guy, whether he's on that roster or not?
I enjoy watching Donovan Mitchell more than any other guy on that game, even Luka. Donovan plays with like I don't want to put the Westbrook tag on him, but like
Luka.
Yeah, like Donovan is one of those guys who, when he's on the court, he's just going to relentlessly attack, and there aren't that many guys like that, especially guys who are his type of athleticism at his size. I love watching him play. He's 22.5 a night. He's got 4 assists and 4 rebounds. That needs to get better, but the turnover numbers are way down from the beginning of the year. He's shooting better. Not great, but better. And as he plays more and more point guard, I think he becomes more and more exciting to watch because the ball will be in his hands more. Rubio has to go. Not like now, obviously. They're rolling with him, and they're still a playoff team. They're still good, but I think they can find a better fitting guard to run with him. And once they get him an actual 4 who isn't Derek Favors, Utah, like I wanted Utah to be on
People
Tobias
pimp
Harris
Derek
so
Favors.
bad.
I don't think he's that good.
He's okay, but like he's not. Like, they should have been in harder on Tobias Harris.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Tobias Harris is incredible.
If it like the rumors were like, oh, we didn't want to put Exum in, like you should have given up Exum for Tobias Harris. If it was a first round pick and Dante Exum and whoever else, you should have done that.
Cedi Osman gets 31.4 minutes per game.
That's a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
he's a good defender.
31.4. That's what happens when you play for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Can defend 3 spots, maybe 4 spots. Who knows?
Like last year when LeBron was on the team, he got maybe 3 minutes a night.
Yeah, he got some run. After that trade deadline, he got a little bit of run every now and then. I think he started a couple of games.
He might have because they were injury riddled too. But like if they were at full strength, if that were a Kyrie LeBron team, he might have never seen the floor.
No, but yeah, that's a championship roster though. Like Cedi Osman's probably not going to see minutes on a championship roster.
Now he's getting 31.5 minutes.
His team has 12 wins, like 14 wins. How many they got?
The Cleveland Cavaliers. But that's our rising star, Cedi Osman. My guy, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I fucking love him.
Yeah, you're not going Tatum on this one.
I love him. Well, I can't because I already said I don't even feel like he should have been in the game.
That's fair.
Skills contest champion, Jason Tatum. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Half-court shot was electric.
Dude, it was incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he didn't even have to do that. No. He was just like, I'm going for it.
Yeah. Well, Trae Young was up there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had him beat. And it looked like the half-court shot might have knocked his out, but still, absolutely incredible. And he had the bank shot the first round to win it, too. Mm-hmm. He was living off the glass. But SGA is my guy. Dude, I love point guards with length, which he has just in spades.
I mean, my thing for SGA, I pump the brakes because I think Michael Carter-Williams when I look at him. And
I know.
Obviously, the
I
rookie
do
year
too.
that he had. But Michael Carter-Williams was in a situation where the team was actively trying to be awful, and he got too good too fast, so they traded him. In L.A. with SGA, he's with Doc and Sam Cassell. That's huge for him.
Now the worry, though, is that this year they are now actively trying to be awful.
I don't know if they are. I can't tell.
It kind of feels like it, though.
Like, I'm in a seed in the second half. Well, not the second half because there's like 20 games left. But in the last 20 games, like, there's still a playoff spot. They're still there.
I also worried that being with Doc would hurt him more than it would help him because Doc is so notorious for like not letting his rookies play.
But not when his rookie point guard's the best guard on his team.
Yeah, that's what made me really happy.
Aside from Lou Williams, all due respect to my guy.
True. SGA came out early this year and was like, I'm going to be the starter on this team, and you're just going to have to deal with that.
The best thing about him is you look at him and you see the body type and you think, oh, he's going to get killed on defense. But he's not. He can defend.
He really can, and he switches
he
well.
Moves side to side well. He's got
and
length.
he can almost guard.
Get bullied.
He can almost guard 4 positions because his wingspan
he's not there
is
to
so
guard
incredible.
Yet, though. Like he'll get bullied on 4s.
Right, and he has to get up and wait a little bit. But once he gets there, like his wingspan is insane.
Yeah.
What is he? He's 6'3", 6 or 6'6".
I think he's 6'6", yeah.
6'6", and his wingspan's what, 7 foot almost?
I think 6'11".
It's insane, and like that also. you're a weapon if you can develop a really consistent mid-range shot. Because you're just going to be looking at the rim.
He doesn't have to. He's one of those guards who doesn't have to take threes. Those long guards, he can get to the basket and play in the mid-range effectively enough because he's such a good passer with the driving kick. He won't have to shoot threes.
That's the other thing I love about him that you kind of touched on with, like, he needs to put a little more weight on.
Yeah.
But he's not afraid to put a body on somebody, even though he doesn't really have the body to put on people.
He goes to the basket. He does.
He's
a John Calipari point guard.
He'll get low and he'll go up, and that's what excites me about him. But I think, dude, if he gets a little bit more consistent shooting the mid-range and especially shooting the three, he'll be incredible.
I mean, that's the MO for John Calipari point guards, Derrick Roses and John Walls of the world. Like, that's what they do.
Because right now he's
three-point shooters.
Right now he's shooting a good percentage from mid-range, but he doesn't do it often.
No.
I need him to pull up a little bit more often and get just really good at hitting them.
I like his game,
and
though.
he'd be a weapon.
Yeah,
I love his game.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot that can develop out of there.
No doubt.
And that's the Rising Stars game is always exciting. The other thing we want to do,
to see his last name on the jersey going like all the way around like an arc.
I wondered what they were going to do with it, and then I saw that they just turned it into a square. His jersey, his name is like a rectangle on the back of his jersey. Any other young guys that you just love, like Jaren Jackson? I love Jaren Jackson.
Really young. I think he'll be. I don't want to call him the next guy. I'm always like hesitant.
He just reminds me of KD.
Yeah, I think KG. Like I see him and Kevin Garnett. Like, and I don't like. You never want to compare a guy to Kevin Garnett. Like, you never wanted to compare Kyrie to Allen Iverson at the beginning. Like, it wasn't. You can clearly see the similarities, but you don't want to compare a guy. I'm at that stage with Jaren Jackson, where like you see it, it's clear. He even looks like Garnett at points on the floor, but I'm not going to just say, "Oh, you're going to be Kevin Garnett," because it's Kevin Garnett.
You know the one comparison I'm ready to make, and it is a guy in the Rising Stars game, but it's the guy that I said I didn't think should be there. I think Jason Tatum's Paul Pierce.
I don't like Paul Pierce. You know this about me.
I know you don't
I don't
like
want to say that,
but you gotta
like Jason Tatum.
You got to respect Paul Pierce.
I respect the fact that Paul Pierce is like a top 15 all-time scorer because he was the only scorer on a bad team for a lot of years, and that's the only reason he's there. But at the same, is he Paul Pierce? He could be Paul Pierce for this team. I think he can be better than Paul Pierce.
I do too. Yeah. But I think and not just the way that I think he's going to be like a career Celtic, but the way that he does operate in the mid-range, and then he has this comfort with like a turnaround jumper. He's
smooth
killer from three.
He creates a lot of space off that turnaround. Plus, he's 6'8" and he fades really well.
It's not super consistent yet, but it does look pretty right now. And that's what I'm confident that it's going to get better because, one, he's really comfortable taking it. And two, like you said, he just creates a ton of space on that shot.
He's quicker than Paul Pierce.
Way quicker.
Like, definitely. And more of a fluid athlete.
Yeah.
Like, without question.
He can dunk way better, too. He's
built
a
better
flashy
body,
dunker.
By a long shot, better body.
And I just I wanted to step away from the mid range a little bit, which he has kind of let the Kobe aspect go. But I want him to be
one more summer with Kobe. It comes right back.
I want him to be more Paul Pierce than Kobe because I know he wants to be Kobe. He's
T-Mac?
not Kobe.
Like I see more T-Mac.
T-Mac be cool too.
Like his body type, his size, his fluidity, his athleticism. I see more T-Mac.
It could be. Maybe it's just like the Celtics jersey makes me go to Paul Pierce.
Yeah.
That might be part of it. Then we have to talk Anthony Davis before we get into midseason awards and the power rankings. Because what the hell was he talking about on media day?
So the only thing I could really come up with something to just try to explain it was to say okay, now that the market's cooled and they know they're not going to LA, he has to say that he never had a list in the first place and whatever, and he only gave this list because he wanted to force their hand to LA right then and there. And now that it's over, he has to be like, okay, I'm going to walk that back a little bit. I'll go for whoever trades me, and I'll be there for 1 year, and we'll reassess. And that'll happen until draft day. If he's not traded on draft day, then he'll come back out and be like, I want to be a Laker.
Yep. I mean, that could be, and that's, for me, it was like the other way where this doesn't help you or hurt you, really, because the fact that you didn't get traded by the deadline, you already put Boston back into it, whether he wants to be there or not.
Yeah.
But coming out and saying Boston's on my list, or they were never not on my list, or whatever it was that he said.
Well, your dad clearly stated they were not in your list, and your agent.
But it really hurts because then, you are no longer slashing Boston's leverage. You just bolstered it, if anything.
I think what he was saying is, you guys are saying this list of places I would sign long term is the list of places I'll go. And I never said that. I'll go anywhere. I still might not sign long term in any of these places, but I'll go anywhere.
Yeah, and I'll play for 1 year for any of these.
Exactly.
20, which is,
that's
like
what he
you
was
said,
saying. I never had a list of teams I won't play for. I just had a list of teams I'd sign long.
We'll see how you feel about that when you get traded to Orlando.
Magic. Have fun.
We'll see what you're saying.
When Phoenix gets the number 1 pick again and offers DeAndre Ayton and the number 1 pick for you, and Drew Holiday, like, have fun in Phoenix. With
When
Devin
you're
Booker and
spending
Drew
your
Holiday.
summer in the
Like,
desert,
yeah.
enjoy yourself, buddy. I still feel like he's going to the Knicks. I feel like everything is
If
just
the Knicks
shaping
get
up.
a top 2 or 3 pick, which it'd be pretty hard to think they won't at this point, though they did redo those lottery odds and everybody has like the 14% or whatever it is to get it. If they get a top 3 pick, they can put together a really attractive package. Dennis Smith's playing really well, and they're going to keep giving him long minutes.
He is playing really well.
And Knox has played okay. They're going to
They
keep
do
giving
have
those
a
guys.
future.
If they want it, they don't want the future. If they wanted the future, they'd have kept Porzingis. They don't want the future. They want the now.
Yeah.
And
the
if
now
you
might
have-
be getting a top 3 pick and sending it for Anthony Davis and then trying to get KD.
No, but that's the thing. You take your top 3 pick, you take Kevin Knox and Dennis Smith, and maybe it doesn't cost you both of them if you get the number 1 pick, and then you get Anthony Davis, and you still have 2 max slots.
Yeah, their cap situation is
It's
incredible.
huge.
I don't trust it because it's the Knicks and it's
Oh
James
no,
Dolan.
yeah, no.
But it's like if that situation were in almost any other city, I would be head over heels for it.
That's my thing about the Porzingis trade. We talk so much about, like, do we think there's collusion? Do we think there's collusion and all this? If I'm a Knicks fan and I'm looking at that Porzingis trade, you better hope there's collusion.
Seriously.
Like, you just traded your guy away. You better hope they know they're getting somebody.
Otherwise, you just got shot in the stomach.
Like, this whole, does collusion exist? If you're a Knicks fan, you better hope collusion exists, because if it doesn't, and
They
it
just
doesn't
slit
work
your
out,
throat.
you've got to get 2 guys. Like, it's not just the one guy for the Knicks. You created 2 spots by sending out Porzingis. So you sent out a max slot. Like, Porzingis was one of those max slots theoretically. So you better get 2 guys.
Yep. And then trade.
Yeah.
Like they need to do it perfectly, but they're set up to do it perfectly. So
Even if they
it could
miss
work.
a little bit, they can still be there, kind of. But like you can't miss by a wide margin if you're the Knicks.
The only problem I have with it is like Anthony Davis being so non-committal, and this I'll play anywhere, but I won't. We'll see where I sign.
It's keeping power. Like this is MO of what Rich Paul is doing with all of his clients, except John Wall.
It is keeping power, and if there is collusion, then it's interesting. But like, I think now I'm looking at the 2 biggest players outside of Anthony Davis this summer are Kyrie and Kevin Durant, and what they decide to do. And I think a lot of what they decide to do depends on what Anthony Davis decides to do.
Clay reaffirming this week that he wants to go back is a big, that's bigger than people gave it credit this weekend. It just kind of flew under the radar, but he said it again.
And I think like him saying that also kind of pushes Kevin Durant away even more. But
I don't know what to make of it with the Durant situation at this point.
Their whole thing is like there's not a whole lot to talk about because he doesn't say anything. Nobody in this camp says anything. They're very low key and they're just like, we don't owe the media anything. We're just going to wait and do it in July.
He definitely believes that.
Like, why you all keep asking me this? So it's the same thing, but I just like, I'm getting to the point now where Anthony Davis being really non-committal, I think like KD and Kyrie might both sign 1-and-1s and just stay where they are and then see what happens when all 3 of them are free agents.
Kyrie doesn't even have to opt out, right? That would be the situation. He wouldn't even have to sign the 1-and-1. He could just opt into the last year.
He could just opt in, yeah. Which
would suck because that means you can't get Anthony Davis.
Yeah, and I don't think he would do that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to opt out and then maybe sign a 1-and-1 and then maybe they trade for Anthony Davis and then Kyrie tries to convince him to stay or they spend a season together and they're like, hey, let's go to wherever together. And like it could be one of those situations, or it could be KD signs the 1-and-1 to stay put because he's looking out and he goes, the Celtics are still going to be really good. The Sixers are going to be really good. Whoever's going
if you're Danny Ainge,
if winning is important to KD, he's staying put.
If you're Danny Ainge and you know that Kyrie has to opt out for you to even think about the Davis trade, you can't do it unless he opts out. Once he opts out and he says, I want to sign the 1-and-1, do you pull the trigger on a Davis trade? Or do you keep Jason Tatum? Because you don't know if Kyrie's leaving next year.
See, that's where the 1-and-1 would...
That's like if Kyrie signs a 1-and-1, I'm not doing the Davis trade if I'm Danny Ainge.
That is interesting.
Because you give up everything to potentially lose both of them.
Yeah, if you lock up Kyrie, at least you know you locked up Kyrie. Even if you lose AD, you still lost Tatum and you still lost whoever else you have to send. Probably Brown and Smart.
Or Hayward.
Hayward if the Browns... Browns. What am I saying? Hayward if the Pelicans... Hayward if the Pelicans are the Browns of the
getting close
at the moment. Hayward to the Pelicans kind of makes sense to me though, because like if they want to be at least moderately competitive and money's not an issue, and it looks like Hayward continues to get better the way that he has.
It'll be interesting to see if money's an issue in New Orleans for now. Like if they go, that I keep hearing, they want an established name. They want to really show that they care about basketball in New Orleans. And it's like, well, does that mean you're going for it? Because then I'd just tell Anthony Davis, you're playing here next year. And if we trade you at the deadline, we trade you at the deadline.
The other thing about the 1-and-1s is like maybe the cap space that's out there doesn't all get filled this summer, and it ends up creating like the summer of 2020 becomes what the summer of 2010 was, or what the summer of 2014 was. Where like
2016 was the wild
2016
West.
too.
Chandler Parsons was getting a $100 million deal.
Right, but it's like 2010 where LeBron was able to create the
Right.
big three in Miami, or 2016 where
the
Otto
glitch
Porter
in
and
the system allows
Ian
Kevin
Mahinmi
Durant
and Kevin
to go,
Durant
like,
were
yeah.
getting paid. It's something like that where like the players would really put the power on themselves. Like Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, and Kyrie would all be unrestricted free agents in the same summer.
That is the thing that nobody's talking about too, is like depending on New Orleans, whoever they hire, like let's say they hire a guy who comes in and says, you know what, AD, I have you till the trade deadline and I'm willing to risk that you might get hurt playing for us next year and then I won't be able to trade you. But at the same time, I got a year to put a team around you. I might come in and play it as fast and loose as I can, trying to sign free agents, trying to sign guys that fit, and we might just go for it next year. Like, that's a possibility. I don't think it's a strong possibility, but it's a possibility.
Right now, they got Danny Ferry as interim GM, which is just a terrible, terrible situation. That's another example of failing upwards in the NBA.
Tough end for Danny Ferry.
And like the way that they fired Dell Demps, I know that they said it wasn't because of the AD injury, but the optics of it just stink.
I mean, Dell Demps, for anyone who hasn't followed the New Orleans Pelicans situation, Dell Demps should have been fired after the Chris Paul trade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, and just in case you were
wondering,
wondering,
he made it for way too long.
That was 7 years ago.
He made it for way too long.
He has hung around long enough to just
he's managed
absolutely
to waste,
implode his own franchise.
He's managed to waste 7 years of one of the most
of a
generational players we've ever seen.
On both ends. A guy who was an Olympian at 19.
Absolutely wasted 7 years of him.
Yeah.
Couldn't get past the first round of the playoffs. And, well, I guess couldn't get past the second round of the playoffs.
No, I mean, couldn't theoretically get past the first round until this past year. This was the first time he'd won a playoff series. It took him 8 seasons. How do you not win a playoff series for 7 seasons and get to come back for the 8th?
And then he went and had a situation where he had probably the 2 best big men in the entire NBA.
Bungled that one.
And still managed to screw it up. Awful, awful GM. But the timing of when they fired him, why the hell did you even let him work the deadline if you were just going to can him a week later?
If only because they knew they weren't trading him at the deadline. That could have been the
only
maybe
reason. Ownership came down and said, you
are not
move
doing
him.
a trade.
And then Dell Demps was just having fun with the Lakers.
Exactly. Dell Demps was like, I'm on my way out. I am going to fuck with Magic.
Kind of funny if that's how it really went down.
I'm sure if they knew they were going to fire him, or whether or not they thought they were or weren't, that somebody came down and said, you're not trading him. You can take as many calls as you want just to mess with people, but you are not trading him.
All right. Anthony Davis, not a whole lot we can talk about more than that. Gotta wait till July.
Leaving the locker room at halftime seemed to send a lot of former players into a tizzy. I didn't care much about it.
Yeah, like obviously the locker room's not going to be in good shape when your best player goes public and says, I don't want to be here anymore.
I think the optics of being walked out of the locker room and out of the stadium by your stadium arena by your agent, like that,
not great.
That didn't look good for. All I just heard
not
was
great.
Former players being really pissed about it. KG and Shaq and Barkley and all those guys were mad. But I don't like if they didn't have an MRI machine. I was going to get an MRI. Could I have waited till the end of the game to get an MRI? Probably, but I didn't.
You're right. If there is an underground tunnel, it would have been a good idea
I
to
think
just
he was
use
going
an
through
underground
a tunnel.
tunnel.
They just caught him on camera. I don't know where he was going.
Also, well, one thing is, I remember watching the game with Dell Demps sitting in the GM suite, and the back wall looked like he was sitting at the very top of the arena up against the worst,
they blew that game
shitty
too.
brick
that
wall that I've ever seen. Yeah. So maybe the facilities really are just absolute garbage.
Smoothie King Center, you think?
Dumpster fire. Just a dumpster fire of a facility. Like not having an MRI machine in a professional sports arena is reprehensible to me.
Yeah.
That's the Pelicans.
Guy makes like $25 million a year. You got to have an MRI machine. You invest in the MRI machine to protect that investment.
All right, mid-season awards, because we are at the NBA's mid-season, heavy quotation marks around that, because there's, 25 games left for most teams?
Less than that for some, yeah.
So we are very much in like the three-quarters
We're in the
point.
home stretch.
Yeah, 2/3 point of the year.
Yeah. Once you hit March, it's like...
We're basically in the playoffs.
Yeah. The playoff races now heat up. This is what's fun about the end of the regular season is everybody starts trying.
Well, in the West anyway. In the
East,
top of the East,
you're going to see some serious battles with Charlotte and Detroit. They're going to go at it down the stretch here. Miami's going to get in there.
Detroit better not make the playoffs. Detroit better not make the playoffs.
Yeah, they probably will.
Oh, if Detroit... I don't know what I would do. I would just want to find Tom Gores and scream in his face.
Do you understand?
For hours.
Like, in 2016, when they made the playoffs, like, yes, they got swept by Cleveland, but they were in most of those games. Like, Cleveland was clearly better. They won the championship that year, but they were in most of those games.
Can you imagine if they get in and knock out Toronto or knock out Milwaukee?
It will be a bloodbath. Milwaukee will slaughter them.
Could you imagine if they won?
I don't see it. I don't think they'd win a game.
No, I don't either. Like Blake would probably play his ass off, but
he'd try, but it's not going to be enough. Like Milwaukee will slaughter them.
Blake's the MVP of the team. Who's the MVP of the league? This has gotten way more difficult than it had been.
Like a week and a half ago, I was just like, blanket, it's Harden. Like, whatever. It's got to be Harden because he has 20-something 40-point games and he's doing things that
and he's
only
on
Wilt
this
Chamberlain
wild
has
streak.
Done.
But then
the more you see it, it's like, oh man, he just keeps shooting free throws.
And then Josh Okogie slaughtered his step back attempt.
He did. That was very nice.
And I've seen it all from James Harden. You can't get destroyed by a 20-year-old Josh Okogie.
So much of me sees Paul George and thinks, man, he looks a lot like Kevin Durant did when he won the MVP playing next to Russ. And you look at the numbers, and Zach Lowe did like a whole thing on it. You look at the numbers, and they're eerie. It's like he has almost the same numbers as Durant that year he won MVP playing next to Russ, and he's Defensive Player of the Year. So, like, Paul George.
I love Paul George.
Giannis is Giannis, but if OKC's got the 2 seed, I'm leaning Paul George.
I've been saying Giannis all year. I'm back down. I'm on Paul George. Paul George is my MVP.
He's shooting 50% on heavily contested threes.
Yeah, and his 30-point streak that he's on, or that he was on, I can't remember if it ended, but
I don't think it did.
Just they're winning every game. Like, that's the one thing about Harden is he's on this wild scoring streak, but the winning stopped a while ago. Like, they went to the...
Yeah, I mean, they lost that game to Brooklyn at home,
and then
with him and Dinwiddie going at it, and it kind of...
Then it fizzled out
after that, yeah.
And then they were on the ESPN game the other night, and Harden lost against
did Paul George had 28
against the Timberwolves when Okogie slaughtered him at the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And they go to the next game on ESPN. I think it was Golden State and whoever. They're like, the thing about Harden is he's doing all this and he's winning games. And I'm like, actually, lately he's really not. Yeah. Like, he's not beating anybody. And if you're losing to the Minnesota Timberwolves, it's a problem. I don't know that I can really give you MVP. So
that game was at home too, wasn't it? Oh no, it was on the road.
No, it was on the road, but still, it's the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
If you're going to be the MVP, you should be winning the game. And I know a lot of it has to do with Capella being out, but I'm sorry, what Paul George is doing in OKC, where they're winning 12 of 13 games, and just he's scoring 30 points, and then he's coming out and going,
lose a game and win 4 in a row or whatever it is. Yeah,
he's going, I know that my number 2 option is the most inefficient scorer in the history of the game, but I don't even need him to score.
Man,
so
he's something else too, though. Like, he's playing his way out of third-team All-NBA. He really is
so good.
Like, he's just like, every time I watch Russ, it's just like,
and he's finally playing defense.
He might not like make a lot of shots. He sure doesn't make a lot of shots, but like, he's such a constant threat to attack the rim. The pressure he puts on the rim for opposing defenses creates so much space for everybody else. Terrence Ferguson takes wide open threes. His threes are wide open, and that's all Russ.
Yep.
Like, he just constantly puts pressure on the rim from the perimeter. It's insane.
And yeah, like, even though he's shooting bad, the threat that he will shoot, it just
every time.
It's so
It's a guy who will take 47 shots in Game 6 against Utah. Like, he will do it.
You can't sag, and that's. I don't think they're going to lose first round series this year. I think they're going to the Western Conference Finals. They look good.
My only thing is if they draw LeBron and they have to deal with LeBron.
They better hope that Denver
gets
that
Melo.
too.
Come on, Melo, get to LA.
They better hope that Denver gets that too.
Denver,
I don't think Melo's going to LA at this point. I think if it were going to happen, I think it would have happened by now. But Paul George is my MVP, and I don't want to set this up where I'm going to say like something crazy, like they're going to go knock off the Warriors, because who the hell is going to do that? But
maybe.
Remember when KD and Russ played together?
Give Dion Waiters some credit for coming off the bench flamethrowing in that series.
They went up 3-1, and like, here's the thing: when KD and Russ were together, even though they had like those games where they were 30 and 30, and it looked like they were having fun. It also looked like there was a little bit of tension between the two, like pretty often. And like when one was hurt and one would go off, and then like when Russ would get hurt and KD would score 30 points for 10 straight games, and then when KD would get hurt and Russ would score 30 points for 10 straight games
for like a month.
Yeah, and it felt like there was a little bit of tension between the two the whole time. Feels like Paul George and Russ like work really well together.
I don't think there's the threat of like, I don't think there was tension between KD and Russ until it became like, okay, he hasn't signed a contract extension.
Yeah.
And now these last 2 years are like, is he leaving or is he not leaving? And with Paul George inking up
He
for
committed.
a 4-year deal, he's not
committed.
going anywhere. Like,
And he's
and
like,
Russ damn sure isn't going anywhere.
and then the other thing is, if Russ was shooting this bad with Kevin Durant as a teammate, Kevin Durant would have no problem doing subtle shots
some
to the
random
media.
burner accounts would be saying some mean things about Russell Westbrook.
They already were. He was already on Twitter talking about, you think it was Kevin Durant that was the problem?
He didn't want to play for Billy Donovan and win a championship with those cats.
Yeah, so these guys get along well, and that like goes a long way in this league.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think there is potential this team could be a finals team. Which is like in the West, it sounds wild because the Warriors have their big
where
five.
I'm not going to say it until I see it. Like, there's no way I believe anyone
I just want to
can
set
beat
it
them
up
until they beat them.
I just want to set it up because then if it happens, I can come back to this
they
day.
were up 3-1 with KD and, well, again, KD wasn't on the Warriors. He was on the, so that's that big factor is like, hey, that team with KD and Russ, they were up 3-1 on the Warriors. Yeah, well, that Warriors team didn't have KD.
Yeah, true. It was also the best team that's ever existed.
They won 73 games.
By win percentage in the history of the NBA.
Draymond shot 40% from deep.
By the way, they blew a 3-1 lead of their own, didn't they?
Series, the very next series. They came back from 3-1 and then blew 3-1.
Coach of the year.
We talked about
this
it earlier.
Is tough.
I
it's
like
so
the
tough.
Kenny Atkinson angle.
I love
really
Kenny Atkinson, too.
Like,
I was going to go with Bud or Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse probably more so because he's a first-year head coach and he's doing what he's doing in Toronto. But I feel like so much of it is just having Kawhi and having more floor spacing than they ever had with DeRozan.
Yeah. It's tough.
Like, it
to
almost
take
feels
a
like
guy,
he doesn't have to do that much.
Especially who came off the bench as an assistant to just kind of move seats and just give it to him right away when the guy who was there won Coach of the Year last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's tough.
And then you see they're actually better without DeMar DeRozan, and it's like,
yeah. Well, clearly they got an All-NBA player versus one who wasn't an All-NBA player.
Maybe DeMar was the issue here. Yeah. So I also have Kenny Atkinson because I just like watching the Nets is so fun, and I've never in my life been able to say that.
They have phenomenal guard play. And when you have phenomenal guard play at the young age that they have it, you got to give a lot of credit to a head coach for that, especially a head coach who used to be a point guard. Like that, I want to give him. Like Mike Malone deserves a lot for Denver this year too. He should get some definite votes. But like I like Kenny Atkinson. They're the best team in the East that isn't in that group of five. That's like the power in the East.
Yeah,
like Brooklyn's the best one of the next tier.
I agree, and they are the only one that's at the bottom of that 5 or 6, 7, 8 that I think could actually win a series.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they get the 6 and they get Indiana. Right now, they're 6-3. Them in Indiana.
It would have to be Indiana. Indiana's the one I think that could lose first round. I don't think the Celtics can lose first round anymore.
It's possible Toronto could lose in the first round. I've seen it before. Never with Kawhi, but I've seen it before.
I don't know that Kawhi's losing in the first round.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is they have a whole different situation going on.
Because I've never seen Kawhi lose in the first round.
Will it be out of the realm of possibility for Kyle Lowry to disappear in the playoffs? No, absolutely not.
It's also like the last time. Well, yeah, Kyle Lowry, I got no faith in. I'll believe it when I see it.
Better than good chance he won't play.
The issue, like as much as I love Pascal Siakam, who's coming up for me, playoff basketball is way different. And like some of these young guys, like I almost hope that the Lakers make the playoffs because I want to see how Lonzo and Kuzma perform in the playoffs. It's a whole different style of basketball.
I want to see how Lonzo comes back from a high ankle sprain.
The defense is better. The defense is tighter. Like the playoffs are a different beast. And so as good as Pascal Siakam's been and as good as he's like improved to be, I don't know if I can go.
Fred VanVleet gets a lot of minutes in fourth quarters too.
Yeah,
like Kyle Lowry down the stretch. If it's not working, they'll sit him in the fourth quarters.
But yeah, and then VanVleet is a guy that really, if his shot's on, that's the exact type of player that you want late in a playoff game.
And Danny Green, that's another good pickup. Marc Gasol, another good pickup.
Pretty much won him a finals, and nobody wants to talk about it in San Antonio.
Like all of a sudden, Toronto had like They haven't shed it because clearly I just said it. Like they could lose in the first round. It wouldn't
yeah.
shock me. So they haven't shed that whole
But
banner.
it's nothing to do with this year.
But
it's
they
just
have
they're
all
the
these
Raptors.
guys now who are like quality, proven playoff veterans, like Danny Green and Kawhi and Marc Gasol and Serge, who have all been into conference.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if Marc Gasol got to a conference finals, but all the rest of them have got to a conference finals. Like they have plenty of playoff experience. They shouldn't lose.
And now they offer so much spacing with guys like Marc Gasol
Definitely.
and Serge, and so like I just think they're a team that's kind of built for the playoffs right
sure.
now. The same way I feel about Boston, by the way. They might have their speed bumps during the regular season, but I think in any 7-game series, probably 4 times out of 7, you're going to see them look like the best team on the floor.
They have the smallest margin for error, but when they turn it up, they're as good as everybody else.
I think when they turn it up, they're better than everybody else.
That's
except
what worries me,
in the
is
East.
because like these games that they play, when you see them really go, like that game against Toronto that went to overtime, the game against Golden State, like when the other team, Toronto wasn't as into that game as they were. Like Kawhi and Kyrie were battling back and forth, but when that intensity picks up, when Milwaukee really cares about beating Boston again, when Toronto really cares, I'm worried that Boston like is going to lose that edge they have of always being a little bit more geared up than the other team when the playoffs come and everybody's geared up.
We'll get to the Celtics. Okay. Most improved player, Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
I think it's easy.
Open
You
shot.
want Marcus Smart.
I want Marcus Smart really
I would
bad,
love Marcus Smart.
but
I think Pascal Siakam's done so much in 1
randomly
year.
goes for like 44
And
points on nights too.
Most
like,
improved player almost never goes to a 5th-year guy.
no,
Like that's part of the
it's
tough thing too. Is
yeah.
Siakam feels he's so much younger and he's so much fresher in the league.
It's like, what year was Jimmy Butler in 15? That was 4th. Yeah, no.
So it like
Once you get to that 5th year, it's tough.
yeah, I think it's really difficult, and he'll be pushing like it's
Blake
been a
has
long
chance.
time coming
Like, Blake might be a finalist
for
maybe.
most improved.
Yeah, it's possible.
It really is because what is he
Career
going to
highs
be?
across the board?
The first ever or the 12th ever to put up 28, 8, and 6.
Something like that. Yeah.
So it could be, and he's been so good.
Yeah.
Part of it is because he plays on the Pistons, and there's nobody else. Like
They
when
have
you're next to
nothing
Andre
but
Drummond.
him. But he faces double teams all night and still puts up those numbers.
These next 3 are pretty much no-brainers. DPOY's Paul George, no question.
Gobert, a little bit of question, but I'm still giving it to Paul George.
Probably, can Marcus Smart be a finalist? I think he should be.
Maybe, like if
And the
Embiid's not.
The one stat I would offer is Marcus Smart's guarded centers for like 150 some
Yeah, it was like
possessions
7,
and allowed
whatever,
9
yeah,
points.
9, yeah.
Like
It's
it's
crazy.
just the way that he switches is incredible.
He's great.
Rookie of the year, easy. Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
6th man of the year. I didn't even think about it, but then you were like, "This isn't difficult. It's Lou Will."
Yeah,
and
I'm
like,
going Lou
yeah,
Will
it's-
every time. Again,
It's Lou Will.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Like scoring 45 points. That was funny to me though, because they were like, Lou Will set a record by scoring 45 points off the bench. And I'm like, he played more minutes than any starter.
Yeah.
But because he started off
He's
the
their best
bench.
player. Like, of course he did. They didn't have Tobias. Like, he's their best player. Like on top, like I want Spencer Dinwiddie to get some like a little bit of play for that, but he's not Lou Williams. Like he's been great all year. He's probably been the runner-up 6th man of the year. But like, Lou Williams is just blowing everybody away off the bench every year. He does it. He's
Yeah,
6
it's-
foot, 175 pounds.
And he's always one of the most effective 3-point shooters in the league. And he's just consistently really good. This year, it kind of feels like that Eric Gordon type thing when Eric Gordon won it too, when he was just super efficient from
Yeah.
3. So I think it's got to be Lou Will.
Lou gets that professional scorer business card that like not that many people have, and he's 6 feet tall.
Yeah, it's true. All right, last thing we got for this week is the power rank,
Okay,
which has evolved into us talking about NBA teams for 10 to 15 minutes.
not mad.
Mine is pretty similar to last week. Last week I had Golden State 1, Oklahoma City 2, Milwaukee 3, Toronto 4, and Philly 5.
Mine is exactly the same as last week, so I haven't changed anything.
So this week I dropped Philly and
Right.
I put in Boston, and that is
Just
my
because they beat him.
that is my only change, and because they won 2 straight. And dare I say, after Marcus Morris came out and said that they don't have any fun, they looked like they were
looked like
having
they
a
had
little
fun.
bit of fun.
It's interesting that they start to have fun when Kyrie's not around.
All right.
We can get into that talk if
We
you
sure
want.
can. So my number 5 team, and this is where I said we'll get to the Celtics because we got to talk about the Celtics.
Sure.
They just seem like, if you like the NBA, this feels like the story that all year has never gone away. Are the Celtics good or not?
Because they've only found their stride for maybe like what they rattled off at some point, like 11 or 12.
They had like won 13 of 14 or 13 or 15
but
games.
other than that one stretch, like they just haven't found it. It's been
It's
up and
been
down.
kind of up and down. But then you go like broadly since 10-10,
Right.
since that start, they're the best team in the NBA
Right.
in almost every metric. So it's weird because the whole time that even though they're on this stretch where they're 27-11 or whatever it is,
Yeah, I think so.
and they've been the best team by pretty much every metric in the NBA. It's like,
especially defensively,
it still feels like they're not that good. And especially like when you hear people talk about them, and even like you were going, they might lose a first-round series.
I don't think they'll lose a first-round series, but I do think like of that group of 5 teams, maybe not now with Indiana losing Oladipo, but before. So that group of 4 teams, let's take Indiana out just for the sake of argument. They probably have the smallest margin for error.
I would agree, because when they play low, they play really, really low, and when they play, that's what somebody said. Because I just said when you play 7 games, I think there's 4 games where they're going to look like the best team on the floor. And then somebody else said I think there's 3 games where they're going to look like the best team on the floor, and then 4 games where it looks like they're just getting completely outclassed.
Think back to that Cleveland series where those guys could not play well on the road. They could not figure out how to beat Cleveland on the road. They would smoke them at home those first 3, and then they obviously Game 7 went how Game 7 went. But like on the road, they couldn't find it.
That's where I go back to. Because this team's so much better without Kyrie. They made the Eastern Conference Finals without Kyrie.
When you need Kyrie.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, look, you can do what you want in the regular season, and you can win. You can go to Philly and beat Philly because it's not a playoff game and they're not giving playoff effort. But Philly wants to beat Boston.
Definitely.
So I think they give more effort. Like you said, Toronto.
Again, it was their like 3rd game together though too.
Toronto wasn't as into it, whatever. But I think like Philly at this point just. Especially Embiid and especially Ben Simmons, they want to beat Boston.
You see it from the stars. Kawhi was into it in that game, going toe-to-toe with Kyrie, no doubt about it.
Yeah, because
you saw a little bit of emotion from him even.
They were dueling. Yeah. And that was Kyrie was definitely
Can we talk about Kawhi's shoes, too? We'll save that for later.
No, but I think you look at Boston, and I think that, they do need Kyrie, and they need Kyrie especially in the playoffs. Yeah. And that's where I'm at the point, if this knee sprain is at all serious.
Which they say it's not.
But, just rest him. Because we're getting to that 60-game mark where...
I'm always that Brian Windhorst quote, is there ever a non-serious knee injury?
Exactly. And I'm not at that point where I'm ready to go, we're going to hit some wild run where we're going to win 23 of 25 games to end the year and end up as the 1 seed. I don't think that's going to happen whether we have Kyrie or not.
And, the knee injury is the same thing as baseball if you're a pitcher and it's an arm injury. It's I might have just tweaked something, but it's still my arm. Like basketball, you need your knee.
Relax. We need you in April. Because 23 of 25 to end the season would be insane. We still have to go on the road to Golden State. You might as well etch a loss in. There's still a West Coast trip in there. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be tough. I don't think that's going to happen. And that's why just rest Kyrie, get the 5-4 seed, whatever it is, if Indiana starts to fall or if you stay ahead of Philly, which... I think Philly is just a head case.
There's
going to
be teams that rest too. There's going to be plenty of teams that rest. Yeah. We see this every time in the last. That's why I think when everybody's saying, I'm going completely off track here, but when everybody's saying the Lakers have this really hard schedule, they're playing all these good playoff teams. They might be seeing teams with 2 guys resting that night.
Yeah,
that's very possible that will happen.
And
LeBron's not going to rest.
That happens a lot more often towards the end of the year, and that's where I'm like, you're pretty much, if you're the Celtics, you're pretty much locked into that 3, 4, 5 seed.
Yeah, you're probably
just
not
hold on to it.
Yeah.
Just stay there. If you can get the 3, awesome. But one way or another, you're going to have to go on the road to Toronto. You're going to have to go on the road to Milwaukee, and you're going to have to win a game. And if you want to do that, you need Kyrie.
You remember last year when Kyrie got hurt and the Celtics were pretty much locked into that 2, and everybody was trying to jostle for the 7.
They were trying to tank to the 7. Milwaukee wanted that 7 so bad.
Everybody wanted the 7.
Because everybody
Miami was trying to lose
dead.
games to get down to the 7.
But that's where I look at that Eastern Conference Finals last year, and people go, they took LeBron to 7 games without Kyrie. They're better without Kyrie. And I'm like, dude, that series would have been done in 5. If Kyrie had been playing.
People don't realize how bad that Cleveland team was outside LeBron.
Seriously.
They were not good.
That's a LeBron team. That team sucked.
That team has not lost a whole lot other than LeBron, and they're the worst team in the NBA right now.
Boston's roster without Kyrie was better top to bottom than Cleveland's. They just didn't have LeBron. And then Game 7, the lights were too bright for Marcus Morris, and the lights were too bright for Terry Rozier. If you have Kyrie, that series isn't even going to 7.
It's so tough to say, but I mean, he's obviously a game changer, a series changer, and all those things. So I mean, you can say it. You never know because they have LeBron.
So then the other aspect to me is the priority for the rest of the year has to be get Hayward back, keep Kyrie healthy.
Hayward looked good.
Get into May.
Hayward.
It feels like he's turning that corner.
It's like you give him more responsibility, he starts to play better.
It feels like he's turning that corner.
I think he just needs a bigger role.
If I'm the Celtics, and that's where they might be in and out of these power rankings, I have a feeling they're going to stick right around 3, 4, 5, and maybe fall out here and there. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with it as a fan. Just stay healthy, get Hayward back, keep Kyrie alive, and get into April. And let's go.
Let's go.
That's all we got. Because I still think, like, Jason Tatum came out after winning the skills challenge and said, we're going to the finals and we're winning it.
Good luck.
A little Jalen Ramsey.
Good luck.
But
yeah, I mean, Golden State still exists, so.
It does make me nervous because, dude, I don't know who beats Golden State, if we're being honest.
I'm not trying to hate on anybody, but no one. Like, good
In
luck.
7 games,
if
like,
they're
it's not
healthy,
happening.
if they're healthy and they have home court, good luck. Like, Milwaukee might get home court. I think Milwaukee could win 2 games in the finals. I think it's definitely possible, but I don't think they're going to beat them in 7 games. They're so fast. Milwaukee, like, they're just as fast as Golden State.
I keep looking at Toronto, and I know, like, it's a different thing because there's no Pop, and it's not Manu, and it's not. But Kawhi had them on the ropes in the last time we saw him in a playoff series. Kawhi had Golden State on the ropes.
Kawhi had Tony Parker.
For
Kawhi had a lot of
like
help.
32 minutes, and then he broke his leg.
Yeah,
so
Kawhi had LaMarcus Aldridge and Tony Parker and a lot of help. He did not have Kyle Lowry.
It's true. He did not have noted playoff choker Kyle Lowry. So your number 5 is still Philly, right?
Toronto.
Oh, Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay. So, wow, you still have Philly.
I still have Philly at 4. I'm telling you, man.
You're giving them a little time to gel?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm giving them as much time to gel as they need until they get to the playoffs, and then it better be gelled. But,
all right, so the question I wanted to ask you about Philly then is if they, like, now that they did lose to the Celtics in their first game against them, if they go to a playoff series and at the end of a 7-game series, after getting rid of Fultz and after trading for Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, and with all that money on the market, what happens if they still lose to the Celtics?
Which round?
Semifinals.
The conference semifinals?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to commit after a second-round loss. I don't know.
And if it's to Boston again, I think that would even be worse for them.
It depends. Like, if they lose it because Al Horford dominates Embiid again, what are you going to do? You already paid Embiid. Like, it's just a guy he can't get by. Because that's why they won the series last year.
If it's just
Celtics
Horford and Baines dominating
Embiid,
and they're not allowing Simmons to get into the paint.
That's going to be the huge X factor, too. If you lose because Simmons can't be on the floor with all these guys, then what happens there?
That's where, like, if you're the Sixers and you lose because the floor spacing does nothing to accentuate Ben Simmons' game.
I think Tobias Harris is such a natural floor spacer, though. Just like you insert him, and all of a sudden everybody's got more room because you have to pay attention to Tobias Harris.
But that's where if you're then looking at Ben Simmons and you realize all that space that you can give him, he can't do anything with right now.
I bet Ben Simmons starts jacking it up in the second half.
Which you might also not want because we saw him start to shoot against the Celtics from mid-range, and it was ugly.
If they start beating up teams, like it starts to gel, and they start beating up teams, all of a sudden Ben Simmons is going to get some fourth-quarter minutes he probably wouldn't have gotten to just go out there and fire it.
He's got about 25 games to get a stroke from at least 16 feet.
Like,
otherwise, Brad Stevens is going to expose him.
The turnaround jumper from 14 and the short corner, it's not terrible. Like, I'm not saying it's an effective NBA shot, but it's effective enough for him.
It's not Jason Tatum's.
But because of the way that he can attack, like, he's such a good driver. He gets to the basket, like,
one
absolutely. Step and he's there.
And that's the fear is, like, if he's alone at the top of the arc and he's got a ton of space and you give him a full head of steam to get to the bucket, he's probably going to dunk it.
And he's a decent post creator.
Or just at least finish.
He's a better than good passer from the post, but he's a decent post creator. Guys cut. They have really great cutters on that team. That's another thing. Like, Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick are 2 of the best cutters in the NBA, and they added Tobias Harris, who's a severely underrated cutter.
Ben Simmons is not a good cutter.
No, he's not, but he's a great passer to the guys that do
and
cut.
that's what. So, but then you need him to play with the ball in his hand and that's another
he's
issue.
He's only effective if the ball's in his hand. Why even have him on the floor?
So but it just worries me because, like, if they post him at the 3-point line the way that they did last year, where whenever he has the ball, put him at the perimeter.
He has to do the Draymond.
Switch everybody and just deny balls on cuts.
You see teams run that
really
action though that Draymond always does now when they sag off him. Draymond just points to somebody, says set a screen, and all of a sudden somebody's wide open off a screen because Draymond's guy's way down in the post, not guarding anybody.
Right, but this is where I'm getting with the Celtics is when they played the Warriors and Draymond ran that exact play with the double pick and roll and the flare screen, the Celtics defended it.
No, not the double pick and roll. When Draymond has the ball like high post or anywhere and people sag off of him, he'll look at one of the wings, someone standing next to Curry or Thompson, say set a pick, and then all of a sudden there's nobody there because the guy who Draymond's supposed to be guarding is way down in the post, and Draymond just hits that pass every time.
So if they start to use Ben Simmons like that, I look at the Celtics and I feel like they are the nightmare matchup for the Sixers because they can switch every position. Yeah. And it's like if you are forcing Ben Simmons to play against a defense that's just going to switch everywhere, there's not a lot that he can do.
Seeding is going to matter this year on both sides, I think, more than recent years. Because the matchups can really oh, man, that team's way better. But if they got that team in the first round, you never know.
Exactly.
Especially
and that's
in the
where,
West with the Lakers looming.
I think seeding as far as home field or home court is going to matter a lot less this year than in a lot of different years because
it's all about the matchups.
Well, and it didn't even matter really last year because Cleveland went with the 4 seed.
Yeah,
and Golden State went with the 2. So it
That's
really
how
didn't even
bad
matter.
Cleveland was. He played all 82 games and they got the 4 seed.
Yeah, people need to really realize.
The team was awful.
When people hold last year's finals against LeBron, which I did too because of the punching the whiteboard and everything.
But after they lost game 1.
That team was so bad.
Put up 50 in game 1 in a game they should have won.
So getting back to my question about the Sixers, is Ben Simmons tradable is what I'm asking. If you go through a 7-game series with the Celtics and get bounced in the second round. Do they then have to force him to develop a shot? And if
if he doesn't spend all summer, whether they win or lose, he should be spending all summer shooting the basketball.
After year 3, year 4, if he still can't shoot,
then all of a sudden
you can't commit money to him.
No, but that's the thing is Elton Brand has been on record saying it's not even a negotiation, saying we are offering him the max the first day we can, which means this summer he's getting offered a max extension,
which is insane. And I get it because I think he's even without the shooting, I think he's still a top 10 player.
He's amazing.
Fringe
if he
top
could
10
shoot.
player.
If he can shoot, he's all of a sudden first team All NBA, right there.
He's so good. If he could shoot, he's fringe top 5. I think.
I mean, first team All NBA. Definitely.
He would be absolutely generational.
He's right there with anybody if he could shoot.
That's my worry is if you get into year 4 and you've now committed all of that money to him. Are you then going to? Is he untradeable if he's still not shooting and you're still not winning?
He theoretically he's going to get at least a 16-footer by year 4, right? He's not going to go into his next contract without being able to shoot a free throw.
Either that or he's going to put on a shit ton of weight and just turn into Shaq.
That'd be terrifying too. But I mean, I've always said the offensive game for Ben Simmons is going to come from the post. He's going to start with a post game. He may still be a point guard, bring the ball up and push in transition, but when they get into the half court, he's going to be in the post. And if he's running things from the post, then he's Blake Griffin, and that's fine. They have the same taste in women. But
Blake didn't have her sitting right next to the bench at every game.
She didn't want to come to Detroit. But
even in LA, she wasn't right next to the players at every single game.
But even on top of that,
he can be effective.
Philly. Yeah, he can be effective in the post as a point forward and then as a point guard in transition. He can easily do that.
I agree. Don't get me wrong. I love Ben Simmons, but I'm just at a point where if Brad Stevens continues to expose him, and this is assuming, of course, that the Celtics keep Kyrie and that they make some sort of
I'm very curious to who's going to guard Kyrie.
No one.
That lineup, those 5 guys.
Biggest issue facing them.
Simmons is the prime candidate to guard Kyrie in that starting lineup.
And that was my initial thought when Tobias Harris got traded to the Sixers when him and Boban went was.
Oh, and they found that out too. Boban cannot play against the Celtics.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
This is where I was like, this is very nice, but who is going to guard Kyrie?
Yeah, no, I mean,
this is still your problem.
It's going to be Boban might see 2 minutes a night when Aaron Baines is on the floor with Daniel Tice. Those are the only time Boban's going to play.
Maybe it's a situation where Elton Brand is we don't need anybody to guard Kyrie because his track record is that he won't be playing in May. So
that could, yeah. Well, I don't think you bet on that or gamble on it, but yeah, I mean, they don't have someone to guard him. That's very apparent.
The other fear is that you just lost to the Celtics again without him.
Yeah.
And you got torched by Gordon Hayward, which means if Gordon Hayward is coming around the corner.
He was outstayed. He's not going to play like that. That's better than Pete Gordon Hayward, who's 8 for 12 from the floor or something.
6 of 7 from 3.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
But what if that's what he's developing into? Because his athleticism is gone a little bit from the leg.
Guy who finds it in the floor.
And now he's just going to be a guy who strokes at home from 3.
I don't know if he can do that with Kyrie on the floor.
He's not going to miss 1-3 every game.
But I don't know that he can be that guy who just finds it in the floor because it's not as flowy with Kyrie out there. It bogs down. There's a lot of ISO.
That is the one problem with having Kyrie. It's the benefit of having Kyrie is you have someone who can go ISO at all times.
Yeah.
The problem with having Kyrie is it kind of handicaps your spacing, and he goes ISO a lot.
Even people get confused to say, "Oh, he doesn't go ISO." No, one high ball screen with Al Horford, that's still an ISO. It's a two-man
ball.
Yeah, it's still an ISO.
And they play. Don't get me wrong; it's maybe the best 2-man ball in the Eastern Conference.
In the Eastern Conference, yes.
I wasn't gonna go league, but
just waiting. Curry and Durant play together still. So.
It's probably the best 2-man ball in the Eastern Conference, but. It's still ISO.
Yeah, it is.
Especially because how often does he end up hitting Horford in the roll? Like it's almost always that Kyrie's
Crazy
the better
finish.
He's the better finisher of the two. He's the better shooter
Horford's
of the
good.
two.
Like-
Horford's just providing space for him. It's still an ISO.
Great screener. However, underrated screener.
Incredible screener. So I have the Bucks at 4.
Are we still on 4?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we got sidetracked with Philly. And I have Toronto at 3. We haven't talked about either of these teams yet.
did
We talked
Toronto.
about Toronto
Yeah,
a
we
little
did
bit,
Toronto.
but Milwaukee's just the same story for me. I got to see it in the playoffs.
I
I'm at
just
that
want to
point.
see how it all fits. Like they have
Yeah.
too much right now. Like,
And I'm at that point with them where, like, now that you have Mirotic, I think you're a real threat. Having Giannis, obviously, you're a real threat. Having Middleton and Brogdon, they're good players. Chris Middleton should not have been the second pick in the All-Star draft.
yeah, well, we know why it was.
But no, they're fine players, and I think it's a fine team. It's not the most talented team.
Talk about the All-Star draft. Dear God.
Maybe we should. It's not the most talented team in the. Well, we're going to find out how well the draft went in a few hours.
It's
We're
not
recording
even
this
that.
ahead
It's
of the
the
game.
fact
by the
that
way.
he it's only like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, but the fact that he just blank didn't even care, just went out and was like, every guy I'm taking with my first picks are free agents. Like, doesn't matter.
It wasn't. I loved it.
The only person
LeBron.
he couldn't was James Harden, and he was the last pick. It was like him or
I
Kemba.
loved it.
Well, I'd rather have James Harden.
I absolutely loved it. It should have been like that's elite tampering. And then did you see the picture of him shaking hands with AD in the locker room?
Oh yeah.
Elite tampering.
He even said, like, Giannis pointed out, like, that's tampering, and Brown's like, there's no tampering at All-Star break.
It was also that interview, like the last game that the Bucks played before the All-Star draft, and they were like, "So do you have any plan for the draft?" It was the sideline report. I can't remember. It might have been Lisa Salters. I can't remember who it was.
Were they on ESPN?
I don't remember. I really don't. It was a week and a half ago. I don't remember. But I do remember they were like, "Hey, who are you going to take in the All-Star draft?" And he was like, "First pick, I'm going to take Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. Second pick, Chris Middleton." And I was like, "Wait a minute, what? What?"
Well, good for you. Have fun.
Like I can't. God, I wish I could remember who was asking him. But she started like laughing. She's like, "Oh, really? That's."
I still think they might win, though, because they do have Russ and Giannis, and those two will actually try.
Everybody keeps looking at LeBron's team and going, "Oh my God, look at how much talent this
None of them
team
will
has."
try. None
It's
of
like,
them will
none
try.
of them care.
No.
They're all two-way players that are only going to like. By the way, I put a bet in on Russell Westbrook for All-Star MVP because I think of all
He's
of
won
the
it
things
before,
in the
yeah.
world that you could like death taxes Russell Westbrook winning All-Star Game MVP because he's the only one that's going to give a shit
You
the
always
whole
think
time.
like whatever city it's in, that guy should always be the one trying to get MVP. Like whether it's Kemba, I know AD did it in New Orleans a couple years ago. Like
Kemba's
if
got
it's in
no
your
shot.
city, you should be the one trying harder than everyone else.
I don't think Kemba has a shot at being MVP.
I mean, anyone can win. Like, could Kemba score 40 in an All-Star game? Sure, it's an All-Star game.
He's in his own city. He put up a disgraceful performance in the
awful.
three-point contest.
Yeah, but
just dreadful.
I
Which,
still think he could win MVP.
it's a shame that he was even in it because he's not a great three-point shooter
No,
to begin
he's
with.
not a three-point shooter.
Like,
And
come on.
You know what sucked too is Miles Bridges' first dunk screwed him because his second dunk was the third best dunk of the night.
Yeah.
The off the baseline 360 after the Shaq dunk and the J. Cole dunk. That was the best dunk.
Yeah. You know, I can't help it, and maybe it's bias, but do you think Marcus Morris should have been in the three-point contest?
No, I thought Davis Bertans should have been in the three-point
That's true.
contest.
That's true, too. That's true, too.
Yeah.
I would have been fine. I was
He
like,
should have been in the
even
three-point
Middleton.
contest.
I was like, why is Chris Middleton in the three-point contest?
He's a good three-point shooter.
Good.
I mean, but he's on a really good team. Like
Yeah, that's the problem. But like Marcus Morris has a better percentage from three than Bertans probably has a better.
leads the league.
Yeah, so like we're looking at
Clay wasn't in it.
true.
Clay's
Steph-
response for why he wasn't in it was the best thing I've ever heard.
What I didn't
Too many
see it.
light-skinned dudes. Too scared. There's too many light-skinned dudes. I'm scared. It's the best response of all time. He said it to Danny Green.
He cares so little. By the way, did you see what Russ and Embiid said about playing on the same team?
I saw that Russ didn't have a comment for whether he
Embiid was like,
playing on the other team.
Embiid was like, I think I can set it aside for one night. Like when we're teammates,
I
I
saw
can put
Russ
it
say
aside.
next question.
Yeah.
Full Mark D'Antonio.
He was like, when we're opponents, I don't like anybody. I don't like anybody.
No.
And then they're like, Russ, do you think you can set it aside? And Russ was
Next
like,
question.
next question, boss.
There will be no setting anything aside.
So I have the Raptors at 3. We already talked about them. Milwaukee. We just talked about Milwaukee, but instead we did Giannis' All-Star draft, which is fine with me.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Number 2, Oklahoma City.
I had them at 3, switched with Milwaukee at 2.
Okay.
Last week.
Oh, yeah. So you still have Milwaukee at 2. It's weird that I had Milwaukee so high for so long and you didn't, and now
The
you have
Mirotic
Milwaukee.
trade just made it be like, oh my God, they have just a surplus of everything they could ever need.
Which could be a problem.
Could be, but at the same time, like
There
better
is such
to
a
have
thing
it
as
and not
too
need
many
it.
players,
Like,
especially when
is.
it's not like a big 5. Like you just have a lot of depth.
That's the thing with them is like you're waiting for like a really good all-star to come in and help. Like, you don't need them. You got like 15 really good role guys.
But they're starting to remind me of what Boston was early in the year before they kind of found their groove, and that scares me for them a little bit.
I don't think they have the young talent that wants to or that thinks they're something that they aren't right now.
That's true.
That's
true, and that
problems.
was the big issue early in the year. Was like Terry and Jaylen
all these
Brown
guys think they're going to be
they
all-stars.
were the shit.
Yeah,
and
in Milwaukee, nobody's out there like, I want to be an all-star.
Turns out you got to earn it.
Like Malcolm Brogdon is not like, this is bullshit. I should have made it in,
dude. And also Eric Bledsoe keeping his head down in the contract year and just playing his ass off is really incredible.
Eric Bledsoe is my spirit animal
because he could be contract year guy and like cause a problem. Kevin Durant, but
imagine that.
Instead, he's contract year guy who's just going to play the best ball of his career and say nothing. He's contract year
guy with Rich Paul as an agent, and he still isn't causing problems.
Helps when you're in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit when you're in Milwaukee.
Sure does.
Because you play next to Giannis and you play in a market no one cares about. Nobody wants to hear from you.
Oh, but I think we said last week Mark Lashley's getting hit with the fine. He got hit with a fine. $25,000. He's a billionaire. It doesn't matter, but he did get fined.
So, OKC, I already kind of went on them. Dude, I really do think that they're a finals contender. I think if there's any team in the West that can knock Golden State, it's OKC.
That's fair. I also think they could lose in the second round to LA, but
I agree. I do. Yeah. I think there's an outside shot that they could lose in the first round if something the way that it went last year happens.
I'll put it to you this way. I think there is maybe 2 to 3 teams that actually would scare Golden State, and I don't think any of them play in the West.
Well, if you ask the players, there's one team that would scare Golden State. I think
they're scared of Milwaukee too. I know you're going to say Boston, but I think that Milwaukee came in and put a smack on them.
They're on record saying that they're scared of Boston.
Yeah.
They haven't been asked since Milwaukee smacked them, but I think if you ask them now, it would probably be Boston and Milwaukee.
You remember like a couple of years ago when Kerr, or not a couple of years ago, I guess it's 5 years ago now, when Kerr took that job and the first thing he said was, look at what Atlanta does. They're in year 2, so they move the ball better. Remember that team in year 2 in Atlanta won 60 games?
Yep.
Like,
Al Horford.
A ton of what Golden State does is what Milwaukee does. Mike Budenholzer was the coach of that Atlanta team. Like, a ton of that ball movement, a ton of the defensive switching, a ton of that is taken from Mike Budenholzer and what they did in Atlanta. And David Lee used to turn that into a joke back in the day where they would be like, oh, we're close to second-year Atlanta. Like, they won a championship that first year. So, like, yeah, we're trying to get to second-year Atlanta. That's funny. But still, like, I think Milwaukee would scare them a little bit. I still think Milwaukee is...
I wonder if Golden State was... Golden State... See, this is where you start playing the what-if game, because now I'm wondering if Kerr and like the Warriors were more afraid of Atlanta than they would have been of LeBron's Cavaliers. But if LeBron's Cavs were at full health, they'd probably win that series.
Whose Cavs?
LeBron's.
There you go.
I said LeBron's, didn't I?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's my whole point.
Oh, yeah, true.
Like,
okay.
Whose Cavs are they? The LeBron's? No, nobody was more scary than LeBron James.
That's true. But then, especially when he won 2 games by himself.
Exactly.
But that's where, like, dude, then I start playing the what if, because I still think if Kevin Love and Kyrie were healthy, the Warriors don't get that first championship. They probably don't get the second.
Well, they didn't get the second.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's a toss up. It really is. I don't know. Kevin Love was never a guy who played well against them. Which is ironic because they really wanted him. They almost traded Klay Thompson for him.
He actually played so badly against them that he got benched for the 3-1 comeback.
Like, I think if they had Kyrie in 2015, it would they did in Game 1. Didn't they win Game 1?
No, they lost Game 1.
Was it Game 2 they won?
They won Game 2 and Game 3 on the back of LeBron doing ISO turnaround jumpers.
Right. But like, if they had Kyrie the whole
43
series,
times
I don't think Kevin Love was the guy who made a difference in that series. As much as I like Kevin Love, his style of play doesn't fit playing against the Warriors.
Hot LeBron take.
Love him. Let's go.
That 2014 Finals, games 2 and 3, were the best I've ever seen him play.
2014?
2014-15 Finals, when the one they lost, games 2 and 3, were the best games I've ever seen him play.
They're great. The first thing that comes to mind is Game 1 from this past year.
Yeah.
The second thing that comes to mind is May 31st, 2007.
Also true.
And then the other one is that game of the Toronto series when he was literally just out there trying shots and making all of them. I think it was Game 2 in Toronto when he just ended the series in Game 2.
The bank buzzer beater in Game 3.
Well, but that was a good game. But when he got in a groove in Game 2, there was a point in Game 2 where he was out there just trying shots, just out there toying with the number 1 seed.
So
just toying with them.
The reason I say it for the games that I just picked out, and I like that we're on this topic even though we didn't plan this at all.
Right.
The reason I said it for those 2 games is I remember watching that series, and it was at that point where LeBron was not like the GOAT yet. People were coming out and saying it, but he really had no chance. Like until he won the championship in Cleveland, he had nothing.
It was a tough argument.
Now, watching those games, I remember thinking, instead of he's the best player of this generation, he might be the greatest player I've ever seen. Because he was on that team with Matthew Dellavedova as his second best player.
That's true. He was starting at point guard.
He was just running ISO post-ups and turnaround faders and winning against the Golden State Warriors.
He was, 29 that year?
Yeah. And I've tried to go back and watch that series, and I can't find the cuts of it.
There was some old Miami series where he's just like, oh my, like there's the Indiana series, the Chicago series, 2012 and 13.
The first Spurs
2014
series.
conference finals with Atlanta, or with Indiana, not Atlanta, excuse me.
The first Spurs series. The fourth quarter, everybody talks about that Ray Allen shot. Everybody forgets that Bron scored 16, 17 points in that fourth quarter.
He's LeBron James. He's a reason he's the best, but there's a bunch of games that come to mind. I think of those Toronto games in that last year where he was just like, I was in awe just watching him just screw around and kill
all
a
of
team.
last year's playoffs were just jaw-dropping.
Yeah, they were.
Even the games he lost in Boston. Like, I remember Game 2 in Boston. Game 1 wasn't that great for him, but I remember Game 2 in Boston when he came out and he was defended by Marcus Smart. And
I thought he was going to win Game 5 in Boston. Was it Game 5? No, maybe it was Game 2.
It was Game 2.
Yeah.
I thought because he came out and he was defended. Game 2 was the one that started really close and then ended up being a blowout kind of. But it was... He came up the court and he was defended by Marcus Smart. And I was excited because I'm like, Marcus Smart is going to check LeBron James. This is fantastic. And LeBron stepped up to the three-point line and ended up doing like a spinning turnaround jumper from 3 and nailed it. And I was just like, this guy's going to win this game.
That's what he does.
Just all right, we're back in.
He's not a good shooter. How the hell did he make that?
He's a fucking sniper now.
Right? Yeah.
Let me that game against the Celtics this year when he was with the Lakers, what he hit 5, 6 threes on 7 or 8 attempts.
That one, the save at the end where he hit the 3 from the corner. It was like that one
after
the Brooklyn game earlier this year. Remember the Brooklyn shot this year? Oh my god!
And then when Kyrie forced him to dribble the ball out of bounds and somehow he saved it and then hit a 3 falling backwards in the corner. It was absurd. He's literally the way he's developed into a sniper, because you always knew he's going to get older. He's going to have to go the Kobe route and turn into a 3-point shooter. I never thought he'd be a sniper.
I thought he would go down to the post. I thought as he got older, he'd just be like, okay, I'm going to have a post game and I'll extend my career being a stretch 4. And I'll play in the post and I'll shoot 3s.
And that's kind of where I thought he'd be too. But at this point, he's still running the floor.
Yeah.
And he's
still
just
handling the ball.
He's just going to the arc and pulling 3s. Some of them are a little bad, but he kind of he's hunting 3s now, and I don't know that I ever thought I'd see that.
Well, everyone is. That's
true.
I mean, he's not exempt from the trend.
True.
You got to shoot 3s to win.
But he's more so than I ever thought he would do it.
Sure, no doubt.
And it's wild to see that he's really successful at it. Mm-hmm. Number 1, there's no question.
Nope.
Every single week, probably until the end of the year.
I can't imagine why I would change them.
There were a couple times where I had him 4, and then Boogie came back. I don't think they're going to move.
I can't imagine. Again, I can't imagine.
Unless there's some random
Clay
gets injured or Steph
if somebody gets hurt. Sure,
Steph has another one
of
those injuries.
Those things.
Right,
yeah.
and that's unless there's some situation, even if everybody's healthy and they just go through a gauntlet on the road and lose 2 out of 3 games while OKC has a 5-win week.
Right.
Sure. But I don't foresee it moving.
No, not gonna happen.
And we don't even it's the Golden State Warriors.
It is. They've earned me not moving them.
They've earned they could almost just lose and be number 1 still. Last year when they were the 2 seed, and I still thought they're the favorite.
I mean, it's like I said, I'm not going to believe anyone can beat them until they lose. I won't even believe if they're down 10 points with 5 minutes to go in Game 7. I'm gonna be like, they got this.
It always feels like that.
Yeah.
They're the one team where they can evaporate your 20-point lead.
Yeah, it's gone
in the snap of a finger.
Yeah. I will not accept the fact that they can lose until they do.
Weren't they down? They were down 36-14 in Phoenix against a bad Suns team, and then there was some ejection, and all of a sudden, bye.
We
Phoenix's
talked about the
lead.
Steve Kerr ejection too. If we want
Gone.
to. That one was fun. Zach Collins, Jesus,
dude, that team, and then Boogie yelling at the refs and telling them to polish his knob a little bit,
something like that.
It was
something along those lines.
It was excellent. I love seeing those ejections. By the way, one thing I do want to talk about before we log off. Why the hell was Embiid calling out the refs after they lost to Boston?
He did it super randomly at the end too.
Made no sense.
It just got up from the press conference. Nobody had asked him about it. He didn't say anything, and then all of a sudden he was like, "The refs fucking sucked."
They turned the ball over 14 times and missed 14 free throws.
I mean, you're the one that went for a 2 when you were down 3 with 10 seconds to go, Joel. You knew what was going to happen. You got to shoot. Get the ball back out. You got JJ Redick and Tobias Harris. Somebody's got to shoot a 3.
Down 3 points. Jimmy Butler misses 2 out of 3 free throws.
Yeah, that too.
Wild. Wild that you would blame the refs.
Sons of bitches.
Just insane. All right, I think that's all we got.
That was a good one.
I agree.
Yeah.
We're getting better at this.
I think so too.
We got a ways to go yet. We gotta.
Hopefully we'll look back and say this sucked one day.
Yeah, that's always the dream.
Right.
Hopefully by the time the playoffs come around, we're just operating.
We're rolling.
Yeah, that's you got to be in playoff form.
I hope so.
All right, guys, have a good week. Thanks for listening.
See you later.